4, 3, 2.
Woman in the Yard, directed by Collet-Serra and starring Danielle Deadwyler. And pretty much everyone who does movie reviews on YouTube has reviewed this one. If this is a mainstream Blumhouse movie, so that means this is probably like the 1000th review of this out on YouTube, and I'm pretty late to it. But I thought I'd give it a go anyway. Let's talk about it. However, this one will be a little bit spoilery because I have to talk about some of the the themes in it to really give you my honest thoughts on it. So although I won't go out of my way to spoil stuff, just what I'm going to be talking about will give you some idea about some of the themes that are in this movie, because this movie is all about their metaphors, is all about those allegories and stuff like that. So we have to kind of talk about it. The movie focuses on a family of 3 people. A mother who has recently lost her husband in a car accident, and she is injured. She has something like a broken leg or something, and she's got her 2 children, teenage son and a young girl. And she is suffering from depression, mental anxiety, and she just can't cope with obviously the loss of her partner and the pressures, financial pressures, what the attention that her children need from her, and she's really struggling. And one day they're out in this kind of farmhouse, which is apparently in the middle of nowhere. The power's out, there's no phones, they're miles away from their neighbours. And there is a strange woman dressed in seemingly like funeral clothes sitting on a chair in the middle of their yard. No one really knows what she's there doing and where she's come from. So the mum obviously goes out to speak to her, and this woman starts saying some kind of creepy stuff. And this sets off a chain of events. The woman, who is in this funeral veil, sitting on this chair, seems to be becoming closer and closer as the tension ratchets up, as this woman is and their family under more and more stress and more things come to light. This mysterious woman in black etches ever closer. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So it's a small cast. Let's discuss the positives. Now, it is a well-acted movie. A small cast, as I say, and it benefits the film by having obviously a lot of sort of character moments and development with our small cast of characters. And I think the actors do a good job here of giving you a real look at some sad facts about life, ultimately. Loss, grief, mental illness, as I say. And the lead performance by Danielle Deadwyler, I think, is the primary focus of this movie, really. Because the film is all about, and this is where it's a little spoilery, suicidal thoughts, mental illness, depression and grief. And how that is played out whilst trying to maintain the facade of normality in front of, in this case, the 2 children. And how they are dealing with it. And this ultimately is the kind of the issue here, is this woman outside is kind of a physical manifestation of this. And then this woman, this strange kind of shrouded woman, seems to be have supernatural abilities and has motivations. So it's obviously key in a film like this, where it's to be honest with you, less of a horror film, more of a psychological thriller, but it is packaged like a horror film, and certainly, you know, comes across as some spooky moments. That you have solid acting and good character sort of development, and that you do. I mean, maybe not development, because the kind of the people don't really go through an arc in this movie, I would say, but the understanding of what is going on and the you know, the series of events that unfolds, I would say, you know, you get to know the characters, you understand the issues here to a degree, at least. And I think it's very well done in that respect. The movie is one of these films where nothing really explicit happens on screen, but it still manages to be, you know, somewhat kind of unnerving and eerie. And I think this the shrouded figure makes for a great kind of like mystery about what's actually kind of going on, and you know, when you're watching it, you'll be thinking of all these, oh, what could be this, could be that, and you know, it's certainly a movie which is very deliberately paced. I mean, it's one location, five technically people in the cast. That's it, and one of them is a flashback. So, you know, it really is a deliberately paced movie. It's not a particularly long film, but because, as I say, it's really more about metaphors and stuff, and the kind of like these limited location and characters and actors. So it's like it is quite a slow paced movie in some respects. But I think there are more, as the film nears its conclusion, it does get a little bit more sort of action, I guess you would say. It is being a Blumhouse movie, has some kind of technical know-how and value behind it. Jean Collet-Serra, he has done a few horror films. House of Wax, I believe he did, among others. So it's, you know, it's well directed in regards to, I would say, the artistry of filmmaking, if that makes sense. And I think the movie is a very, very good example of mental health. It's the best way I would kind of say this. In a kind of fantastical film, if this makes sense. Because the movie isn't exactly spelling it out for you. But I think once you have watched it and digested it, you can understand that this is really sort of what the film is trying to portray without actively saying it, if this makes sense. And this turns us into maybe what doesn't work. I think the film is maybe too subtle for some, because it really is just about that. And I think, you know, people will be thinking, is this woman a vampire? Is she a witch or something? And they're going to be thinking it's going to be more of a boo horror, visceral thrills type, scary horror film. And it isn't really. It has the veneer of that. It's almost like the wallpaper is like that, and that's what it's going to fool you into thinking. But it's actually a study on mental health. And the ending, like, is particularly sort of, I don't know if people would catch what it's trying to say here, and it's pretty bleak. Here's my major issue with this movie, right? Is I think it sort of glorifies suicide. And I don't want to kind of like go into a huge amount of detail here, because obviously I don't want to out and out spoil stuff, but just in saying that, you might get an idea about where this is going. It sort of almost says suicide can pay off. And I don't know if that was the intention, but I think it kind of comes across like that. So that, to me, is a little bit of a damaging message, when it actually, I think, until that point, is a good representation of this feeling of being overwhelmed and, you know, not being able to cope, and the dark thoughts that might come from being super depressed or have some type of mental condition and things like this. And again, I'm not going to sort of point out necessarily bits, but you know, I do think the film is clever in a way for kind of doing that, but at the same time, I think maybe it's a little bit too subtle for some, and it ultimately, I gotta say, I was like, what is this movie trying to say? Because it kind of feels like it's saying, here's a good solution to your problems, suicide. And I don't know if that was its intent. I'm presuming it wasn't, but there it is. I have to say as well, even in the context of this movie, it's lots about metaphors and kind of hidden meanings. There still were some plot holes to me, and I'm thinking, I don't, you know, what's that? For example, the dog. How did it get underground? That's all I'm saying. It was just like, I don't know. And then there's some things here that I'm thinking, well, looks cool, but I don't know if it completely was satisfying in the sort of conclusions. The movie is slow. It's not a long film, as I say, but I feel like it's just one thing. To me, it almost is, I gotta say, I think this movie, in some respects, it could have been a short, like in an anthology or something. I guess maybe you would lack some of the subtlety in that, and some of the kind of the slow build-up and the slow realisation about what's happening. But when it's all said and done, I think the movie is ultimately one idea stretched out. Yeah, so, you know, I gotta say, I think the movie is a positive movie overall in the fact that I think it has a good representation of the struggles in the mind of someone who is clinically depressed and things like that. And I think, you know, it does show that in a way that makes for an entertaining movie. But ultimately, as I say, the issues I have there, I don't think it's like some sort of classic movie or anything. Certainly one you'd probably never watch more than once. And probably certainly a movie that I think might be very divisive. For me, it's a 6 out of 10. It's an interesting idea, relatively well handled, but mixed messages, and as I say, maybe some other choices maybe have made this a little bit more of a easier pill to swallow, I would suggest. 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.